today's video on timelines and calendars, we're going to take a look at specifically the calendar we use today and how years work, which may at first seem kind of simple, but I assure you there is a little bit that we need to learn about. As historians, we are very interested in years. We use years to figure out what events come first, what events come second, etc. This helps us find cause and effect relationships. Before we talk about the calendar we use today, I would like to introduce you to this guy right here, Pope Gregory the 13th. Pope Gregory the 13th is an interesting guy, not only because he's got an awesome hat. Pope Gregory the 13th is also important to us because he created the calendar we use today. And we call that the Gregorian calendar. The Gregorian calendar has 365 days in a year. It then, every fourth year, adds a day, except for years that are divisible by something like 400 or some other complicated math like that. Make sure that, as the earth turns, we have the same dates around the same time every single year. This calendar was created in the 1500s, and by the way, that's 1500s AD. The other thing that is important to know about Pope Gregory the 13th and the people that created the calendar before that is that they were in fact Christians. And that's important because we separate years in our calendar into two major groups. We separate them into AD years and BC years. And the Christians who created the calendar used the birth of Jesus as the separation between those two. You've all heard of AD. You know that the year right now is AD 2012. And a lot of you have probably heard that AD stands for after dead. That's in fact incorrect. AD is Latin, the language of the Romans. And the Latin for AD is Anno Domini. That's right, Anno Domini. And what that means is in the year of our Lord. In the year of our Lord, Latin. So AD is Anno Domini, and BC is in fact before Christ. So any years that are AD, those are years that are after the birth of Jesus, and any of the years that are BC are years that are before the birth of Jesus. As you know, not everybody in the world is Christian. There are a couple other acronyms in use that have been around for actually hundreds of years, but they've gotten very commonplace in historical writing in, I'd say, the last 50 years or so. The first of those is an alternative to AD, which is CE. CE just means common era or current era, the era we're in right now. And the alternate for BC is BCE, which means before common era. The important thing here is that BC and BCE mean the same thing, and AD and CE also mean the same thing. And you'll see both of those. It doesn't matter which ones you use when you write, but I want you to know both of them because some of the readings we'll read will use AD and some of them will use CE, and I don't want you to be confused about those things. So let's take a look at what this actually looks like. Here we've got a line. For the you mathematicians out here, that might look like a number line to you. And we're going to start with the year AD 1. You'll hear me say 1 AD a lot of times, but actually the proper way to do it is AD 1. Remember, that means Anno Domini 1. We'll skip ahead 5 and have AD 5 out there. And then AD 10. So we've got a line here with 10 years in the AD section. But what about the years before AD? Well, the first one there is 1 BC. Then after that, 5 BC and 10 BC. So if you're looking at this and you know what a number line looks like, you know that 10 BC comes before 5 BC, and 5 BC comes before 1 BC. That's important because it's possible you'll see a date range that will look like this. 410 BC to 360 BC. And that might look, one of the questions I get a lot is, isn't that backwards? How do those times go backwards? Well, it's not, because 410 BC happens before 360 BC. You can see these years are counting up to the birth of Jesus, and these years here are counting away from it. So when you say AD 2012, you're really saying this is 2012 years after the birth of Jesus. And I know that looks a little confusing at first. So just a couple quick things I want you to notice about this timeline before we move on. First of all, you'll notice each year is marked by one of these dashes, right? So you've got 85 is this dash here, and 81 is here, and then 1 BC is right here, and 5 BC is right here, and 10 BC is right here. I know some of you right now are thinking, Mr. Corwin, you're missing 0. Where is year 0? And the simple answer for that is in the Gregorian calendar, the Julian calendar before that, there is, in fact, no year 0. So you go directly to from 1 BC to AD 1, and there's no year in between that. This whole video has been a little bit about how years work, and you've got Pope Gregory right here, the guy who created the calendar we use today, because he was Christian, and people who kept track of the calendar before him were Christian. The years are organized around the birth of Jesus, and they're separated into two big categories. You've got AD years, which are the years that happen after the birth of Jesus. Remember, AD means Anno Domini, not after dead. And you have BC years before that, which are the years that were before Jesus. Remember, it stands for before Christ. Remember, not everyone in the world is Christian, and so instead of AD, you could always use CE, and instead of BC, you can always use BCE. Were you paying attention? Answer the following questions to find out. Question 1. Why do we call the calendar we use today the Gregorian calendar? Question number 2. Why is it possible for someone to have been born in 50 BC and die in 1 BC? Why is this not backwards? Question number 3. What do AD and BC stand for? What abbreviations mean the same thing?